Welcome back to the news today. Repressive regimes and political prisoners, the two unfortunately go hand in hand. But wherever rights are suppressed, there will be those who risk their lives by demanding fundamental freedoms. While separated by oceans, these individuals often end up sharing the same fate, still bars. Here with me tonight to discuss the matter, specifically the four political prisoners he is representing, is Erwin Cotler, former Canadian Justice Minister, who acted as consul to Nelson Mandela. Good evening. Thank you very much.
Good to be here.
For coming. You know, I started just the small discussion that we had just before we started this interview is I still find it very hard to believe that in 2016 we're still talking about people who are fighting for their right for freedom or for democracy, or because for us it's so obvious.
That's right, and the people here have several things in common. Number one, they're all imprisoned in countries of repression. Number two, these countries believe that by imprisoning them, they imprison the whole human rights struggle. Number three, they all embody the ethos of Nelson Mandela. In fact, they're known respectively in each of their countries as, let's say, the Mandela of Iran or the Mandela of Venezuela.
Let's talk a little bit about the Iranian political prisoner, Ayatollah Hussein Khamenei, right? You know, just a short while ago, world powers, the P5+1, signed a nuclear deal with Iran. Everybody's talking about the fact that a lot of issues were off the table. One of them is human rights. And, of course, we are seeing that Iran cannot rank itself on top of the world who are keeping human rights. You know, and it's amazing to see maybe the hypocrisy of the world, that you can do some business and you can forgive a country for something, but you can forget the basic issue, which is human beings or living there.
Look, the whole process of negotiating the nuclear agreement not only overshadowed, but ended up sanitizing the human rights repression in Iran. It's not that well known, but should be, that Iran executes more people per capita than any other country in the world. That a Shiite cleric like Ayatollah Bourjedi has been sentenced to, and he's now in his 11th year of imprisonment in an Iranian prison for doing nothing other than advocating freedom of religion, which is a fundamental right that all the democracies involved in the negotiating of the nuclear agreement should have also been advocating on his behalf.
You know, it's amazing for me because I'm always looking at the second person that you're representing and is Raif Badawi, and he's from Saudi Arabia. And again, I want to take it to the international community when Saudi Arabia is standing as the head of a human rights committee, and some people there who are fighting for freedom and fighting for even human rights for everyone. How come the world is not seeing this? How come the world is not standing on its feet and saying, hey, this is wrong, this should not happen? And of course, you should not be the head of a human rights committee telling us what to do. I
remember the Andrei Sakharov, who was considered the father of human rights and the leader of the dissident movement in the former Soviet Union. When I met with him in the late 70s, he taught me a lesson I never forgot. He said, I do not know what will help the cause of human rights. I do know that it will not be helped by silence. And at that time, Sharansky was in prison, and he said, the trial of Anatoly Sharansky is a trial of human rights in the Soviet Union at the time. Same thing with Badawi. It is the trial of human rights in Saudi Arabia. And the shocking thing is that Saudi Arabia could be elected to chair a human rights panel of the United Nations Council on Human Rights at the same time that Badawi is sentenced to 10 years imprisonment, 1,000 lashes. It was a year ago that he was administered the first week, 50 lashes. It was supposed to be each week, but because of the uproar about the lashes, they stopped that torture, but he still remains in prison. Other countries are also selling billions of dollars in arms to Saudi Arabia and not making his release even a condition of that sale.
You know, I wanted to ask you a personal question. When you are coming and you're representing themselves, or either they are calling you or you are coming, seeing this case and saying, okay, I want this case, is religion getting into the middle? Because, you know, I'm seeing you're representing Muslim people in Muslim countries, not always so friendly to to the Jewish religion. Are you finding anything that is stopping you, that is telling you that maybe this can be problematic?
No, I haven't had that enter, as far as I can see, as an issue in my representations, because over the years I've represented political prisoners in different countries like the former Soviet Union, where religion did not enter the issue at all, or countries where in Saudi Arabia it is an issue because they're charged with insulting Islam and imprisoned for that reason. But I've not, as a lawyer, felt any disability because of that.
They don't feel uncomfortable that you are representing them in one way or another, like because of the differences?
Well, actually,
you understand why I find you understand.
But ironically enough, the only country that expelled me, both arrested and expelled me, the two countries that did was South Africa in the case of Mandela, and the Soviet Union in the case of Sharansky. So these were both countries where religion was not a factor at all.
What are the differences between dealing with these kind prisoners or any other prisoner, any other case? People who are advocating against slavery, who are advocating against basic human rights that are not being permitted in a certain country, to a political case, for example.
Well, the thing in each of these instances, what you have is what I would call the criminalization of innocence, and the criminalization of their fundamental freedoms, usually freedom of religion and freedom of speech, or both at the same time. You also find that whatever trial takes place is usually a sham, devoid of any due process whatsoever. The interesting thing also, and we talked about it just before the interview, is that I have found that where you have a spouse that is courageously advocating on behalf of the imprisoned political prisoner, there's a greater likelihood that they will be released. And I have to say that in these cases, they've had spouses that have been at the forefront of their advocacy, more important than the lawyers involved. So I think that's one of the things that encourages me, the courage of their particular spouses.
Let's talk a little bit about the woman behind the man. When you told me this, the first one that came on, in my head, was Fadwa Barghouti, the wife of Mohammed Barghouti, who is in jail, Israeli jail. And I'm asking myself, how really, because I'm seeing her advocating the case all around the world, talking in all forms, how much is it important for him in his specific case? How do you see his specific case, and what are the chances that he will eventually be out of prison? Because they're advocating it as he is a warrior of freedom.
Right, and the women in these instances become the face of the prisoner, become the identity of the prisoner, and they become their fundamental advocates internationally. It was the same when Anatoly Sharansky, now Natancha, was in prison. Avital Sharansky, his wife, became a household person in terms of her identification with the struggle.
Also Pollard's wife.
And Pollard's wife as well. So it's very important when you do have that kind of spell, because otherwise a person can be imprisoned and they end up becoming invisible because there are not people outside advocating on their behalf. In this instance, whether it be Leopoldo Lopez's wife, who came and testified before our Committee of Parliament, or Raif Badawi's wife, who actually lives in Quebec in Canada, who just received the Sakharov Prize on his behalf in Europe. So these women really, as I say, are not only courageous in their own right, but they put a face, a name, an identity on the struggle, and they help to internationalize the struggle.
So I see here 4 cases in front of me. What is the most challenging one between the 4?
They're all challenging, I have to say. They're all challenging. Where you mentioned the religious factor, it comes in 2 of the cases, in the cases of Badawi in Saudi Arabia and Bourjedi in Iran, because their very advocacy of freedom of religion becomes the basis for their imprisonment. And we're dealing with 2 theocratic dictatorships, which make it even more difficult to make a case heard for their release.
Fascinating. Oren Kotler, always a pleasure having you here in the studio. Thank you very much for this.
And always good to be here.
Thank you. Yes, into something else. 17 salt miners who had been trapped in an elevator shaft at an upstate New York mine have been rescued, and the mine's owner said he would inspect the property to see what caused the incident. The miners were trapped at a depth of 250 meters below ground when the elevator failed. Technical experts were able to rescue them, and no injuries were reported. And with me right now is John Alrego.
Hello.
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 How are you?
I'm great. How are
Oh,
you?
good.
Yes.
Now I'm seeing the people in the control room saying,
Oh, they're taking another minute. Instead of talking about sports, they're saying hello, hello. We are polite.
Yeah.
I am polite.
And we are like Farganation to each other.
Farganations, yes. I said that once, didn't I?
Yes, you did. I don't think that people at home know what I mean by Farganation.
The amount of stupid things.
Saying good people about good other people and actually feeling good that they're feeling good.
Yes.
Did you understand me?
No.
Let's talk about Zinedine
Sports,
Zidane.
Zinedine Zidane. Usually a home match of Real Madrid against La Coruña is not something incredibly interesting. Real Madrid are always expected to win these games quite easily. When it's the first match of Zinedine Zidane on the sidelines, that's a different story. All eyes will be on the Santiago Bernabeu on Saturday night to see what Zidane does. And again, Real Madrid, they have enough talent. They can even play without a manager. They have to win this match. There's enough talent there to do it. On the long run, I have said already, and it's recorded, so I have to repeat it. I think it's too early for Zinedine Zidane.
How old is he?
Zinedine Zidane is in his early 40s, as far as I remember. He's not. I mean, there are managers at this age, but you have to go through a lot to become manager of Real Madrid. Rafa Benitez, Carlo Ancelotti, Jose Mourinho, all the men who have been...
Pep Guardiola.
Guardiola, who has been now with Bayern Munich and Barcelona. But all these managers, they have done things before. Zidane, he was managing Real Madrid B in the Spanish third league. Is that enough? I think not. A lot of people think that way. We may all be wrong at the end of the season. It's recorded, I know.
French league.
French league, Lyon. They are going to open their new stadium this weekend. The story of Lyon is interesting. There's nothing interesting about the French league this season. Just so that we know what we're speaking about. Paris Saint-Germain. They went to the winter break with a 17-point lead over the team in second place, which is Monaco. Half the season, 17 points. Nothing interesting about the French league now because PSG are far richer than any other team. Lyon, on the other hand, they were the dominant team in France in the previous decade. They won 7 straight trophies. How are they planning now to compete with PSG by opening a stadium which belongs to them? The new stadium...
17 points, it's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, there's nothing interesting about the French league. I'm sorry to say that, and our French colleagues may disagree with me, but when half the season is gone and we already know who is going to be the champion with such a big difference, it's not interesting. Lyon, they're now doing what very few other teams have done. They own their stadium. It's not as if they play in a stadium which belongs to the city and they have to pay each time they play there or train there. They're saving that money by opening their new stadium, and they're also Euro 2016 games will be hosted there, which will bring the money a lot to the club, a lot of money. Will they be able to compete with PSG that way? That's yet to see.
So today, you brought not flying people, but falling people.
Sort of. We tend to think of those tennis, the sporting heroes as superstars, but if you're a tennis star, Andy Murray, for example, and the ball hits your head, you get scared just like every other person. Look at what happens to him in Australia. The ball comes from behind and boom, hits his head, and he makes this little move, which we all do when a ball surprises us and comes from behind and touches us. It's not the fact that the ball hits his head, but that little move he does with the head. Oy! Okay, everything's okay.
It was like, okay.
Surprise!
Is it surprise?
Yes, it's...
No, how come you're not showing now Jonathan Regev doing the thing?
Yes.
How is it?
I'm trying to make this funny, I know. I found it funny. I watched it 10 times yesterday and I was laughing. What does that say about my sense of humor? I don't know.
Idea.
I don't know and I don't want to know. And yet...
It's bad.
It's bad?
Yes. Jonathan Regev, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucy.
Yes, Star Wars, The Force Awakens. has passed Avatar to become the top-selling film of all time in the United States and Canada. Domestic ticket sales for the movie topped the record of $760.5 million on Wednesday and has thus far taken in $1.5 billion worldwide. To beat the global record of $2.8 billion, The Force Awakens must play well in China, where it opens on Saturday. Yeah. How did Jonathan do? Yeah. That's it for this week. We will be back on Sunday from the Jaffa Port, Israel, and the News Today team. Have peace. Have a great night.